guys, and welcome back to a new episode of Inglorious Banters. This time we're at episode 13, It's Always Sunny in Dresden, or as Andrew would have preferred, From Dresden with Love. So this time around we're talking Konflikt 47 again. So yeah, we'll have a bit of a chat about an upcoming tournament, games that we've played and what we've been working on over our unfortunately prolonged absence from recording. And in a special edition of What's Got Mitch Distracted, it's actually What's Got Andrew Distracted. So we'll get into that as well.
It's a nice change of pace.
Just a short change of pace, right? So it'll go back to me again on the next one. I've been distracted by plenty of other stuff, but I'm trying to make sure I keep it on topic this time. So, guys, how have we been?
I've been doing a lot of hobby for Barrons War, trying to clear some things off my painting table, and having a few games here and there just to learn rules.
Very nice. What about you, Tim? What have you been up to?
It's a mix of Burrows and Badges for me and prep for Konflikt 47, which we'll talk a lot about. But one of our mates got into Burrows and Badges as well, and so we've been using my collection to run a little temporary campaign while we wait for his models to arrive. And they arrived literally the day of our first campaign. So nice. We were like, yeah, let's try these dudes. And then immediately we were like, well, start writing up the new lists.
Yeah.
Nice. But we had a lot of fun getting to grips with the new rules. They've been heaps of little adjustments and quality of life upgrades.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
I've been working on some Konflikt 47, getting our stuff ready for our first tournament. We'll talk a bit about that in a short while as well. But I've also got my 1490 Doom miniatures on their base, cleaned up on their bases and sprayed, ready to go. But apart from that, getting a bunch of bits and pieces here and there. Now, it's been a while since we've recorded, so we've all had a bunch of real world stuff going on. People have been away on leave, moving house. So apologies for anyone that's been hanging out for the next episode. So we want to make sure that we did get one in before our tournament, so we could talk a bit about what the tournament's actually about. So we'll get into that in just a moment. But first of all, some new stuff that's coming out for Bolt Action and Konflikt. So we've had a few very nice drops recently. The new Italians stuff, plus the Commonwealth for Bolt Action, getting their new book going up for pre-order shortly. Very nice looking Gherkin miniatures that have come out. So for the plastic kits. So and also new Soviet naval troops with their support teams, including weapons, and I'm sure you guys have seen this, right? Plastic artillery, which is really cool. So
I did see that. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a big pickup on the plastics front from Warlord. We'll go one at a time. Andrew, how are you feeling about the transition to plastic for a lot of the Warlord stuff?
Very good. I do prefer... Look, it's a bit controversial. I love my metal miniatures, but I also love plastic, especially when you're talking things like artillery pieces and things like that. You've got a little bit more modelling opportunity than a cast metal piece. So I'm more looking forward to the versatility that it brings. And in addition, hopefully, a bit of extra detail on the kits.
Yeah, no, it's the fact that plastic artillery, they're putting enough into the actual molds to, like, they're actually making plastic injection molds for them is a really good sign, especially with Konflikt 47 with the stuff coming out, new plastic totem core, other new units that they're bringing out coming up in the near future. The Soviet bears that were going to be their Warlord resin, they've made into a plastic kit due to the demand of miniatures.
Yeah,
so anything like that, I think is a really good step forward. I would love to see what they do in the future for a lot of these kits. I think there's a lot of kits out there they've already produced recently that have got great detail on them. You might not have quite as many options on the Konflikt 47 stuff as you would have on, say, a plastic kit for Bolt Action. So, like, hats, helmets, whatever it might be. But I think most hobbyists, if we've been in the hobby for a while, will probably have a bunch of stuff lying around, or know mates that have got bits, to do conversion work and things like that. But even the new resin stuff they're putting out for the naval Soviet troops, that looks really quite sweet. So, what about yourself, Tim? What's your take on it?
I love plastic all the time. The advances in 3D printing have been amazing, but I'm constantly dropping stuff and going, oh no, before it even hits the floor. Yep. Just knowing that it's going to snap a barrel or a spear, especially War Master stuff.
Yes,
And my clumsy fingers have gotten so used to holding models delicately that now things just fall out of them. And
sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but yeah,
no,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
I was having flashbacks that entire time of Tim coming over for a game with his Vampires Warmaster army that had just been freshly printed, and leaving my house to a message of "Oh no!" and they were all over the driveway.
To be fair, that was the fault of a
was an
gust of
wind.
But not my pudgy little digits. So look, I'm a huge fan, particularly because the Warlord game systems are pretty much scaled equally for bolt action and conflict. So the cross-mogenation of kits makes a huge difference, because everything that comes out for conflict and bolt action can be for each other. Mostly anything in bolt action can be for conflict, and you can make something more conflicty very easily with the addition of a few like funky helmets or backpacks and stuff like that. So that makes me pretty happy. More plastic equals more good. Even the artillery, if you're just swapping barrels, if you're magnetizing barrels to put a Tesla barrel or an artillery barrel on, that's a lot of upgrades and a lot more scope for collection. Sorry to hog the mic for a sec, but when we were talking about conflict a few episodes ago, one of the things Andrew said was that there are things like the British artillery
battery, I think
battery
it's called,
instead of platoon. That means he's got to take a lot more artillery to field that, and if he's got to collect an entire bolt action set of artillery and an entire conflict set of artillery, that's a lot of outlay. But if he can magnetize and collect a bunch of plastic artillery frames and just swap out the barrels on them, for example, then that means we can see a lot more variation in army lists, and that makes it interesting for everybody. Especially,
and this is only going hypothetical, if you have a standard carriage for most weapons. So I don't pretend to know enough about exactly what the carriage scale on each gun would be, but if you have a look at some of them, they look quite similar going through different iterations. So rather than having, say, 5 or 6 different plastic kits, you could have one, like, sort of, like baggage train kind of style section of having, like, your accessories, your actual, like, wheels, the actual framework of it, but then having just a frame you can put in if you want to take, like, a short barrel for something, like for like a pack howitzer or something like that, for the airborne. But you then have a long barrel version as well you could have. So whether the kit comes with both in there, or whether you only comes with one, you get it as an upgrade frame. Upgrade frames for stuff for conflict would be great, because it means you don't have to generate a whole new another frame, like to all the tooling and everything to make a whole new plastic kit for it.
I think it comes down to whether conflict wants the entire piece to look like a conflict artillery piece, or if they want those common elements. Because you could go, here's a generic light artillery frame, and that comes with a light mortar, a light anti-tank gun, a light Tesla cannon, a light whatever, and then a medium, then a heavy, and that would be fine for conflict. But for historical collectors,
it's the same though with what we're seeing with a lot of the vehicles in the Konflikt 47 kits. They're your bolt action chassis, but with the K47 turret. So you are starting to get that versatility to go, well, I've got my Cromwell for my British that I use with a regular old World War II turret, but then I can also just pop the turret off, put the Tesla turret on, and now it's my K47 Cromwell. Really, really handy. Same with my Greyhounds, same with my Shermans. It just gets that versatility happening.
Same for the Germans, the Schwerfield projector and that sort of thing. Or if you're taking a Panther with the shining cannon, so like for the railgun, like you can do that kind of thing. I think with the work that they've put into the plastics recently as well, how nice and how crisp they are on the frame. Those style trooping that we've built up recently for our forces, really crisp on the detail.
Absolutely,
so, absolutely fantastic. So the new Gurkhas and the paratroopers for the Italians that have come out, so I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what can be done with those as well. So it's a lot of interesting times ahead for bits and pieces for bolt action and Konflikt 47 for new minis, but there's always time for more games. So, and me and Tim have actually managed to have a bit of a practice game. So for our tournament list, we've also had another quick hit out at after our previous recording. we did do a little hit out and had a game at one of our gaming days, and that was interesting to learn the rules on that, and we made some mistakes. And on our game that we had the other week for our tournament practice, we still forgot stuff, so it's there's an awful lot to remember. We had an awful lot of fun doing it. So Tim, do you want to give us a quick chat about how that one went?
Yeah, so we might focus in because all three of us have just got Andrew's played one game, Mitch and I have played two.
Yeah. No, I still haven't played a game actually.
Weren't you were in the 4-player game we played?
Oh, I think I played a turn or two and then I had to jump out for something.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Andrew needs to fire up the energon cubes on his automatons. So Mitch and I will talk a little bit about this. One of the things that Mitch alluded to there was that we're going to a tournament soon. So sort of, I don't know, I'm going to say friend of the channel because I've never said friend of the channel before. friend of the podcast. Ian reached out to ask us about point values for a tournament that he's running for Konflikt, which is up at Shirecon in 3 weeks from time of recording.
So the 16th and 17th of May.
What's the name of the tournament?
It is Descent on Dresden. No, sorry, it is Rift-o-rama.
Rift-o-rama.
Yeah.
And it's a 2-day event, just so everyone's understands what we're planning and talking about, right?
Yeah.
So it's a 2-day tournament that Mitch and I have agreed to go to. All three of us have been setting up army lists so that we can test out Konflikt a bit better, and also we can do some tournament prep that isn't us just playing casually and then getting smashed at a comp.
Like every other tournament.
So the first day is 1,700 points, 3 games.
Yeah.
The second day is a mass narrative battle. That is almost all walker platoons and armored vehicle platoons.
Yeah.
So it's going to be just Tesla tanks and like
jump
walkers and stuff everywhere. So there'll be a few little infantry that fit into those platoons, but it's going to be very armor heavy.
Yeah.
So our main focus has been list building for our 1,700 point list. Right. So Mitch and I got together and played a game of that the other day. Otherwise, the only experience that we have is a 4-player game of Konflikt at a social group game, and like Andrew was there for like 2 turns. It was mostly style trooping on both sides and a bunch of other random guys, and at that point size, unkillable style trooping are really hard to kill.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, the amount of troops that you can field at 1,700 points is not a lot once you start including a couple of big walkers or big tanks. So I think that's definitely a learning curve as far as list building comes into it. And that's when we were having a discussion with Ian about the points scale. We would basically went, look, you don't want to run it at 1,500 because it would probably be a bit too small, so you won't fit everything in. Playing 2,000 points is quite a large army to play with. You're talking massive amount of troops on the field. Someone wants to field a troop heavy army, but 1,700 is a good middle ground. You still get some of the big toys. You still get a bunch of your Rift Tech units. If you want to go through and go heavy on those, you can still take a bunch of troops. If you want to take a bunch of troops, there are if like we're talking about with the artillery, if you want to take an artillery battery, because let's face it, any walkers around there, a couple of anti-tank guns sitting on ambush is probably a good idea at this stage. So I think it'll really be down to what people like taking at the end of it. So yeah, the basic restrictions we have for the tournament was, like Tim said, the 1,700 points. You have to take an assault platoon as standard out of the Konflikt rulebook, and then you could take whatever else you wanted from there. Now, writing the list was a bit difficult when you go, well, I could take this, I could take that. What do you want to lean into more? Whether you want to lean into taking lots of heavy infantry, whether you want to lean into taking more vehicles. So our forces kind of came out to be relatively similar with what we took as far as our platoons. So the first day is 3 games, so which will be pretty much most of the standard tournaments that people have gone to. You can check out the event page through the Shirecon. Shirecon website that has been set up for it. You can download the tournament pack and have a look through there if you wish, see what's going on with it. They're using missions from the standard missions from out of the book that will get let known ahead closer to the date. I think that the amount of stuff that we're going to run into as far as other units is going to be hopefully varied. So I think there's about 8 to 10 people so far for it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So you make an interesting point. We're hoping for varied lists. We always hope for varied lists at a tournament. Andrew, you play British Commonwealth for Konflikt, but you are probably one of the only people that we know that is playing British Commonwealth instead of US and Axis, because they come in the starter set. Do you think we're going to see a lot of not secondary, but from the other big five? It seems like Axis and Axis and US are going to be the big players because they have the most Konflikt stuff out now. How do you think it's going to go?
I think it's going to depend a lot on the split between people that are new to the game and people that have played the previous edition. So at the moment, all of the new starter sets except for the Soviet bloc are out. However, they are quite basic in what's in the boxes. So you'll either need to be padding them out with, say, multiple boxes, which means not as much variety of units, or maybe padding in some lesser true quality to get those numbers out. So for newer players, I think we'll see a lot of the stock standard army that comes in the box, whereas you might find if we've got a lot of people coming that are hangovers from the previous edition, they'll have their previous units, which means that they can have a more varied army. If I was looking at my own, just from the British Commonwealth, at the moment, even though mine are 3D printed, they are the equivalent of what's in the starter box anyway. So even I myself, I don't have a lot of variety yet in what I would be taking in a Commonwealth list. Cool.
All right. So my concern, if it is in fact a concern, is we might get a little bit of a same, a lot of similar Axis armies and a lot of similar US armies, and then like a smattering of Japanese, Soviets. Who else am I missing?
British,
right?
Those guys.
Yeah, those guys. The guys I said 12 seconds ago. And I would love to see a lot more variety.
Yeah.
So with that comes the risk that if we're going to get quite a few lists that are very similar, like a lot of the Axis armies will be focused on style trooping because they come in the starter set, or Toten Core because of the recent release, then that can make those armies a little bit predictable.
And the same with the US, very Firefly heavy, because that's the accessible plastic kit that's there at the moment.
Exactly.
And again, also the new platoon structure out as well. So having people running that, I think that would come into it with any new release for any new book that they do. You'll have a surge in a particular type of platoon will get used, or an army type will get used more. So,
and I think that comes back to what I was saying on our previous K47 episode, is this edition is very much more K47 centric, which of course that's the game, but it does mean that list building element is not as varied. So like Mitch just said with the platoon structure, for my British, for example, a lot of my compulsory thing is made up by Galahad armoured troops or the Mark 1 robots. I need to take them before I start taking other things. For the US, I'm needing to take a Paragon squad or a Firefly or an armoured infantry squad before I start adding extra things in. So you're more forced to take the K47 units, which at the moment are still quite limited in options.
So before we go on too far, that brings up another restriction from this tournament, which is you may only include one unit from the standard bolt action list that is not included as a PDF for one of the K47 army lists. The reason for this was that you can't play test every potential, and there might be some units that would be unfeasibly effective when you combine them with things like a guts point or a special rule from a K47 super unit that we haven't considered so far, or that Ian and the other TOs haven't considered so far. So for that reason, it's just one unit that isn't on the main lists. Now, luckily, a lot of the stable units have been included. I can take Panzer IVs in a Konflikt 47 list because they're nice and stable, they're simple. There's a lot of units like MMG teams and light mortars and things like that that are easy enough and predictable enough that they are already included.
Yeah, you can still take your basic rifle squad. Like all of the factions have the equivalent of a regular armed force. So even though I wouldn't take, say, my paratroopers in the list because they're from bolt action, I could still take a rifle squad, kitted out the exact same way, painted up as them, call them my airborne, but still have that feel in the army.
Yeah.
Well, one interesting thing to note with the unit that the tournament pack allows is for that one unit, it has to be late war. So you're not going to see any early war stuff with like machine guns hanging all over it, like any light tanks, that kind of thing. I think the point about the way the guts mechanic, if you're taking that as the thing you're taking for your leader, being able to put that dice in the bag for, let's say, one of the gun carriages, the American gun carriages with the 450 cals on it, like that's, while their shots are halved, there's still going to be 12 shots, so it's still a lot to put out on a Style Trooping squad or Shrek Wolfen or zombies. Any of the armored infantry, the armored exosuits, it's still going to be a lot of firepower put in there to then go through and draw the dice again and fire it again. 24 shots in a turn is not a bad thing, but it means that you can't have multiples of that lying around on the battlefield, which I think is a good thing. So
yeah, I don't mind it. Yeah. I would have been happy to see one bolt action unit per platoon included, because that also sort of gives a bit of theme to it. Either way, I think this is going to work out okay.
Yeah.
My question to both of you then is, for the sake of list diversity, what are those bolt action units that do stand up to the Konflikt 47 battlefield? And we talked last time about there are some units like AT rifles and autocannons that have that extra pen and a couple of templates. But having had a game with Mitch and I, and Andrew's seen a game, when you've got a unit of Style Trooping or Shrek Wolfen that are 7+ to wound, you've got to have something that can do consistent damage to put down those super units. I'm just going to call them rift units, right? What are the subversive, sneaky units that you might not expect that can come out of the woodwork for bolt action to impact the K-47 world?
That's a good question. Again, like anything with multiple shots, so like the gun carriage with the meat chopper gun carriage with the 450 cals on it, that is a good option. It is paper thin though, so pretty much anything will tear through it. A Shrek Wolfen will tear through it. So with the extra tax and everything like that, with the tough fighter, anything that's going to have enough to tough fighter wouldn't work. It's a vehicle. So, but just the sheer amount of stuff out there that could take out light vehicles. I think heavier late war tanks, I think, would be the way to go. So I know for my list that's what I'm looking at taking in mind. Anything that's got, like, say, an IS-2, IS-3, like for the Soviets would be quite good. But these all lead into a lot of points into one vehicle. Yeah. So you're not talking something that's easy enough you don't really worry about. It might be a 150, 200 point unit you can lose. You don't want to lose a 500 point unit or 480 odd point unit straight away from one shot from like a good shot, or having someone drop in with a Panzerfaust behind you.
Yeah.
So, or an anti-personnel rocket sort of thing. I think is there something along the lines of more of a basic unit that you guys can think of? Because me personally, I fall into the category of vehicles straight away. Like that's where I fall into. Like these are things that you wouldn't normally see on a bolt action battlefield, but on Konflikt, yeah, they fit because they're late war. So, but is there infantry stuff that you guys think more of?
I'm struggling to think of infantry that work, mostly from the perspective of just being able to hurt anything. I could have an SAS squad with a couple of extra LMGs in it. Okay, cool, but the LMGs can't really do anything unless, we're talking unarmored troops.
Yeah.
Great, a pin, cool, whatever. But I think I'm leaning towards the same as you with the vehicle space, but at the same time, there's so much of it that's quite paper thin. My first thought was like a little posse of Jeeps with 50 cals on them. Zip in, shred something, zip away. But get hit by anything that's from the K-47 universe, those things are going to absolutely shred.
That's a great point. And it's certainly something that we noticed that if you're an infantry unit, you're usually designed for killing infantry. So vehicles for killing vehicles, which means vehicles are now for killing heavy infantry and armored infantry. So I tend to look more at the artillery units, like howitzers, light howitzers, certainly for vehicles, anything that has the improved HE rule.
Yeah.
So quite a few of the Shermans, the late war Panzer IVs. I used one in our game where I had the heavy anti-tank gun, but it had improved HE, so I could take a shot at a unit of Style Troopin, and it would still be a 2-inch template with +2 to damage. So suddenly you're doing 5+ to take out Style Troopins, and you're hitting 3 or 4 of them at a time. So those, like the Humble Panzer IV was actually a really solid choice, and I can take a whole squad of those because they're part of the standard German part of the standard German K-47 list. You just take them as not having the Schwertfeld turret, you just take them as having the heavy anti-tank turret, and then
which you can do, you just drop the points down.
That's it. So those units stand out to me, the things that I feel like blast weapons against heavy armored infantry is a really good thing.
I think the other thing, you mentioned artillery, even just the humble artillery pieces. Like I would still take my medium anti-tank guns from my US and my British lists in K-47. They still have enough punch to damage the walkers and the tanks that are in K-47, so there's still a versatile piece for me to choose.
Absolutely. One of the things that came up in all of our games was jump walkers surprising people by dropping onto the battlefield, but the more we look at that, the more you go, well, if I snap to action an artillery squad of 2 medium anti-tank guns and I just put them on ambush straight away, then the second someone starts dropping in jump troopers, mud skippers and things, or even a unit of fireflies, if you put a couple of 1-inch templates in a unit of fireflies when they combat drop in, you're still going to take out a bunch of those little veterans, just popping them off.
And let's face it, most of your Konflikt 47 units, the actual Rift units, are all going to be veterans. So some regular, but mainly all veterans. So you will end up having a lot of points invested in those units. So even something that would go through and normally wound on a 6 going down to a 5 for just a +1, even from the good old mortar. So just a plain old mortar will still do some damage. So, and like we were discussing a bit before we came on air, we're talking about how just chucking out the extra pins, so it will help force some units to sit in place. It's certainly like even just the bare bones Panzerschreck bazooka. They still have their place. You don't have quite as much in an assault platoon. You can only take 1, but if you do take a heavy weapons platoon, you can take like 4 or 5 of those things. So you can even just load up your squad with that and just take a couple of mortars just for the hell of it.
So it also puts me in mind of some of the units that have access to equipment that others don't have. Like in my French army, the infantry can take a 1-inch mortar in every squad. Like all their infantry squads can have an 18-inch range. What are they called? I can't remember. VB launcher, right?
Yeah.
And even if you hit a single heavy infantry model with that, it's just the fact that you've hit them and you get to put D2 pins on them.
Yeah.
Because pinning those guys is just as versatile. What we found in one of our games was, because we couldn't hurt them with all of our rifles, the riflemen had to try to kill the riflemen because that was all they could wound. And then the Style Troopin and Shrek Troop and equivalents that needed 7s, they just strode around going, I'm not going to take many pins from anything unless you're shooting the right stuff at me.
Yeah.
So just getting 1 or 2 pins on them, we had several situations where our Style Troopmen were forced back because we just weren't expecting them to have any pins, and they'd take a single hit from a light mortar or a single hit from an AT rifle or something, and they just get 1 or 2 pins on them, then fail a check and be forced down. And that meant we had to use things like the Vorsmarch, the Rift abilities to push these guys forward and make sure we were on top of that. So pinning out those heavy armoured infantry units seems like a great way to deal with it, which has led me towards my second brainstorm here, which is artillery observers and aircraft forward observers.
Yeah.
Because they deal their trade in pins, and pinning out some of those big squads is a big deal because it just does pins on the units. It doesn't do shots, and then if you can wound them, it does pins. You just roll up for pins all over the place.
Yeah, and especially even against vehicles. So having we had that in our game as well. Having your locust with a pin or two on it, failed test, just stood there. And that's it. So having that from any artillery or any air observer be quite handy just to lock down a portion of the battlefield, especially if they're clumped up in an area. Like we kind of had like a little sort of fire lane area where we had sort of 5 or 6 units all kind of all in sort of within 18 inches of each other. So dropping in an airstrike or a mortar or an artillery strike in there would be perfect for it. So I think that having that is as an option really quite good. Combat though, in combat you can still wound damage 7 units on super 6s. So 6 followed by 6. Anyone with an assault weapon gets tough fighter. That's 2 attacks.
Yeah.
So and that's what I found in combat. I was throwing my units into combat.
So, Andrew, do you still get the bayonets rule for Commonwealth troops in K47, or is that a bolt action trait? Because that extra dice or 2 has made a big enough difference in standard bolt action, and I'm not sure if it's actually a national trait for K47.
I will have a look on the side here.
Sure, that's all right. Just sorry to put you on the spot.
Not 100% sure, but if they did, that would be quite handy to have. Like the up and at them rule. I think it was the previous one.
Yeah, I know that the traits are very different.
Yeah.
You do not get the traits that you have in bolt action. You have a different set for K47, but I'm just loading up the list.
That's fine. There are a few that have followed over. So regardless, one of the main things here is when you're desperate, charge them and just hope for super 6s. And we had situations where it was literally like 10 guys would charge 3 style troop in and just drag them down with bayonets because you've just got to get one more kill, right? They're not stubborn, they're not fearless. You've just got to get one more kill and you wipe out the whole squad, unless we've missed a rule somewhere.
Hopefully not. Otherwise we'll find out at the tournament.
It's an unfortunate no for me. I have a brand new set of traits that are not to do with combat. They're mostly to do with my walkers or keeping myself in the fight.
True. Yeah. Well, contrary then to my amazing tactic there of what if I just strafe everyone with planes, one of the other trends is that a lot of the new Rift units have loads of firepower in the form of carrying their own LMGs, which are arm mounted and count as flak. So you have entire squads of automatons or Galahad troopers which can now throw a ton of shots into the air to fend off attack craft.
Yeah, that's true.
So I lean more towards artillery then for my forward observer. Is that going to be the win?
Well, dropping the shot, the marker down and then having your shot come in from there, like if you anticipate where the people are going to be moving their troops to, it could work. I think you would need to get pretty lucky on your rolls though, because it's still 6s to actually land a shot, isn't it? So am I thinking of the old version? Yeah.
I can't recall, but I think it's double the amount of shots to fend off the planes in this edition. They've got force fields or something, I don't know. There's Rift technology involved, but it's a higher number of shots required to see off the planes. Yeah. But that's to deal with the fact that there are people just walking around with flak on their arms.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Particularly for things like our style trooping units, we've got a mix of double assault rifles and LMGs, and the same goes for Andrew's Galahad troopers. I think they can all have LMGs. That's just a ton of airborne shots.
So you need 7 for K47 to drive off the air attack.
Right. But you're still going to be firing it with your own ridiculous amounts of LMGs as well. So
yeah, that's true.
There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there, obviously.
Yeah. Units to be able to take on some of the stuff. I think the basic the humble basic trooper armed with a SMG or an assault rifle is still going to have its place. Even just armed with a regular rifle, the tough fighter getting the extra attacks though, I think that is, whether it's worth the extra points you pay for, like 6 points extra for an assault rifle, whether that's economical, like the trade-off is there, but time will tell. More games you play.
Absolutely. I guess another thing then is, I'll put to both of you, what's the role of the K-47 visitor, the infantry unit that's come over from bolt action to play in the K-47 playground? Am I loading them all up with submachine guns to get them tough fighter and then desperately charge them in to look for Super Sixes against Rift units? Or am I just putting units of riflemen down on objectives and winning while all the rest of my super units trudge forward punching face?
It's the latter for me. I think I would be kitting them out as cheaply as possible with as many bodies as possible, putting them on an objective, keeping them on down, hoping for the best, and trying to keep them screened with units that'll do a bit more damage.
I'd say both. And the only reason I say both is because having used units armed with assault weapons in that situation, the advantage is definitely there to go through and have a good number of shots. Yeah, you won't necessarily hurt them, but if you manage to use those shots against something else, so it's quite handy. If not, just legging it up and going, cool, I've got 2 swings each with a squad of, let's say, 8 guys, 16 attack dice, you're going to get at least 1 6-on-6 through out of all that.
Well,
so
I guess my counter question then is that like a desperation charge or a dependable charge? Because if I'm throwing them up against most units of Style Troop, and they also have assault weapons, so they're all 2 attacks apiece as well, and they're going to be rolling for 4s or maybe 5s if I'm veterans on my poor little visitor boys. Against the Style Troop, and I'm rolling for 6s and 6s.
I suppose it's a cost effectiveness. So whether you go and you put in, say, 5, let's say you take a squad of 10. So squads of 10 is kind of like the old fallback to 40k era, right? You have a squad of 10 Marines or 10 Guardsmen, whatever it might be. You go, cool, I've got Sergeant, he's going to be kitted out with a combat weapon. Then I'm going to take like new specialists and things like that. If you go, I'm going to take my Sarge and at least 3 other guys with, so four guys with SMGs or assault rifles. You use the other guys as ablative shielding as you go in, so that way you can deliver those guys if you need to. If not, you still have some firepower you can put out at range. And even if you do get up nice and close, you're within 6 inches, and you say against some Totem Corps or even just regular armoured infantry that you need 6s to, like, the British Commonwealth,
Schwertruppen,
the American heavy armoured infantry squads, still killing them on 6s or even Fireflies, because let's face it, Fireflies, they're going to be veterans, but they're only 5+.
Yeah.
The amount of shots you can still put in is going to do that. The thing that we have been comparing this to is 7+ for the armour, like, so your Schreckwolfen, your Schwertruppen, not your Schwertruppen, your Stahltruppen, anyone in that heavier armour, or like the robot units, they are going to be harder to kill, and they're designed to be.
What's the damage value on the robot units? The automaton?
I'm sure it's a 7, isn't it?
I'm going to go with a 7.
Yeah.
Checking. Loading.
I think the reason that we keep comparing them to that is that's the thing that just rules a unit out.
Yeah.
Like where you just go, I've put them on the field and then I cannot harm the units that are coming straight for me.
Yeah.
And we ended up with a lot of situations in our last game where it was the infantry killed the infantry and the Style Trooping killed the infantry, because the Style Trooping also can't kill other Style Trooping unless you've got hands effect or combat charges, right? So you have to do those desperate charges, because they're all toting LMGs and they're toting double assault rifles, but none of those have +1 pen. So,
unless you have a surging dice with a +1 penetration in combat.
But that's in combat, it's not shooting.
It's not shooting,
you've got to charge again, and then you've got like surging bayonets.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Which is, never mind.
Surprisingly enough, I'm only 6+ for my Mark 1s.
Oh, well, there you go. But the Mark 2s are higher, aren't they?
I would assume so. I'm trying to get a unit loaded up.
Sure. So regardless, I guess you're going to be looking at there's situations where some units may only hurt other units, and we're used to that from bolt action. But there are so many more units on the field now that cannot be hurt by small arms.
Yeah, but it's also the flip side of that too, though, is that it becomes a difficult choice to, if we're talking close combat, those visitor units, like we're calling them, they're just going to get shredded on the return attacks, because you're talking about the majority of K-47 units having some form of assault weapon and some form of penetration bonus on top
like
of
deadly
that.
or something, yeah.
You know, that applies in close combat. So you're going to have those visitor units getting shredded on 3s, 4s, very one-sided combats.
Absolutely.
Does it then become a desperation thing? So
Exactly.
you're only using a unit as
sixes.
you go and, you're fishing for crits essentially on that. So look, having played against it and using a unit in that capacity, and it worked in my case, it did. But that was on some decent rolling from me, and unfortunately some poor rolling from you, Tim. So you can't bank on that on every game. So unless you're like me and you normally roll pretty bad for most of your rolls, getting something like, having your heavier troops taken out quite easily, you don't really want that.
So similarly for these bolt action units, another one that has come up where they're still going to be squishy on when they're taking fire, but engineer units that have flamethrowers in them. Flamethrowers are outstanding in K-47 because it's like multiple shots, close range. You can put them in a transport, they can hold an objective, but it's also a 10 wound flamethrower because you put it in a whole squad.
Yeah.
They also have the ability to take like their breaching charges and stuff for taking out defended obstacles and bunkers and buildings and things. There's potentially some play for engineers, which makes sense in like a world of a lot more vehicles. Engineer squads should be doing something a bit more interesting. And some of the armored units, like we have the US have like armored rifle squads and armored bazooka squads and armored mortar squads, where you upgrade team members to take these heavy weapons effectively in a 10-man squad once again. They're coming on, they're mechanized infantry usually, so they're not taking as many pins when their half track gets shot off the back of them. But you can pull those onto an objective late game or mid game, jump out and start spitting a couple of light mortar shots or flamethrower shots, or I think one can take an MMG. I don't think you can take a HMG. But a lot of the transports for the US can take HMG, so you can get some decent little surprise things from having a transported unit suddenly arrive with regular guys from back at base and jumping out and going, I'm actually getting strong enough to hurt you guys.
Yeah, I think it's that mid to late game. Are you grabbing objectives? Are you trying desperate last stands to try and keep an enemy unit off? So are you initiating the charge?
Yeah.
I suppose the big thing would be is what troops are you going to see surviving long enough for that? Because you might have a squad of just bare bones basic infantry kind of ported over from bolt action. You stick them behind in a decent chunk of terrain. You don't move them. So you take pot shots here and there, or you go down if you're getting hit by something. But if you're standing on the objective, that's going to win you the game more than a squad of, say, 6 style troop and running forward and trying to gun down anything and make it into the enemy lines, because they might still get stuck in no man's land or take a hit from a heavy howitzer or something like that and get taken out. And, half the squad gets wiped and the rest flee. I suppose it's down to what is going to be better for your play style. So, and I think there's probably plenty of players out there that have gone through and crunched numbers, have played tons of games, go, this is the effective strategy that will work every time for you. So like you have with any game system, people try and fine tune it down to the meta, this is the way to play kind of thing. So I don't think with Konflikt 47 you have quite as much of that, because it's still a relatively new game. It's only been out since October last year, so 6 months. So 6-7 months coming up to. So the amount of playtime people have had versus what's actually out and what people are proxying as far as figures if they don't have the official ones out yet. We don't even know what else is coming out as far as new units. Look at the Totem Core release. We got we got a whole new tank. So new medics. So
there were some exciting silhouettes on the Warlord. Was it the roadmap? They showed a couple of interesting looking things, which look promising for the future as well. Looking at all these different units, Mitch, it made you think about like game plans and what's happening late in the game. And it's true, a lot of different units will be dead by late and mid game. One of the things that's happened in quite a few of our battles is late and mid game are when the drop walkers and the reserve units arrive and suddenly add an additional unit that has 9+ medium armor somewhere on the battlefield. So making sure you've got surviving anti-tank elements to deal with those until mid to late game is another tactic.
Yeah.
So what's our best option for dealing with these deep striking combat jump? I can't remember which one we're using for this. I think it's combat drop.
Combat drop, yeah.
Right? Combat drop.
Not the other thing that we keep calling
it. They have some very impactful changes to the battlefield when they arrive. How are we dealing with these things in our list building?
Falling over and crying in a pile in some cases.
That's not what you did in our game.
No. In our game, I dropped my locust in behind you and shot you in the back, which is a good turnabout. Panzerfaust are really the thing. Like you can have your chance at when they're doing the combat drop in to take shots at it when they're dropping in to try and take them out. That's only if you've got stuff that can actually see where it's dropping to, so still within its arc of fire.
And haven't gone yet.
And hasn't activated yet.
Well, the arc of fire doesn't matter because there's no line of fire.
Oh, that's true.
When they drop in. But they do need to be dropping within 12 of you to trigger that.
That's what I was thinking.
However, if you have set up your Andrew's paratrooper AT guns over in one corner where they've got a great arc of the whole battlefield and they're on ambush, as long as you see where they land, you can throw a couple of hypervelocity shells over there at them, or high velocity.
And that's where I think for me that it's more in-game tactics than my list building when it comes to things like combat drop, because I've already anticipated from my list building a bit of anti-tank, a bit of anti-infantry, all of that sort of thing. But it's as those turns progress and you start to look over at that side of the table and go, that walker needs to come on very soon. You're starting to make decisions like, okay, instead of firing this anti-tank rifle or this anti-tank gun right now, is it time to put it on ambush and wait? Is it time to carry that over at the end of the turn and hope that one of the first things that Tim does is drop that locust walker in and I'm prepared for it? So you're starting to then weigh up your tactical opportunity of, okay, if I don't shoot this, what can Tim do that benefits him from me not shooting it?
An interesting thing there is getting those elements onto ambush when you need them means you might need to actually remember to use snap to action, which we forgot for most of our Konflikt games because we were so excited by all the riftiness.
Yes.
But you can do something like go, right, I'm going to snap to action, I'm going to put both of these AT guns in the bag, on ambush. Then when the enemy drops down and they both fire at them, you can use that same officer with a point of guts to get them to fire again later on. Choose one of the
you choose at least one. Yeah, you can't snap again.
No,
yeah.
But you can choose him to be like, it's damaged, but I need to put that thing down now. One of you guys is going to go again and just launch another, high velocity shell at one of the walkers.
Yeah.
So Mitch mentioned that the way he dealt with my walker was with his walker. And that was incredibly effective, and particularly for using things like anti-tank cannons.
Yeah.
You forget that you get that bonus penetration for point-blank shots with AT guns.
Yes.
Because so often our tanks are never that close. But when you're on the back of a walker or a jump walker, you can literally clear a building and land 2 inches behind the enemy walker and just smash it. The rear armor, you can jump over its head and do a turn at the end of it and just blasted in the back like a Gundam move.
The old 360 no scope kind of.
And that's literally what happened to mine. Mitch brought down his walker and smashed a bunch of my troops. I brought down my walker and failed half of my shots. Mine was set up to be a dedicated anti-infantry vehicle, and by this point in the game, most of the light infantry was weakened or gone, so he didn't have a lot of prime targets for my walker. But Mitch's one has a nice big AT gun on the shoulders.
And I moved around the other side of the building till I was point blank behind you, yeah.
So he just like jumped around from cover, and it was literally one shot in the back, walker versus walker.
Yeah.
So I think part of the list building tactic then is, what are your vehicles doing? Because in a lot of situations, the walker that I've built will be only effective against infantry.
Yeah.
Now, if we're looking at two main skews, which is Style Trooping skew and Firefly skew, and for the uninitiated, skew just means themed, like you see a lot of in an army. So there's a lot of Style Trooping out there that you need 7s to hurt. My walker won't do anything against them.
Yeah.
If I'm lucky, the missile launcher on the back will take out a couple.
Well, it's +2, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's only a single blast and only 18-inch range.
Yeah, so you've got to be up in front of them.
Exactly. But against the Firefly skew, that's a nice big template against a squad of infantry, and it's 2 Axis MMGs, that's 8 shots from the rest of it. That's actually close enough at point blank to jump in behind a unit of Fireflies or some Paragon squads and things like that and really chew them up, if you make sure it can do the job that it needs to.
Yeah, I suppose that's where your Panzerfaust or RPG ones like your Panzerfaust equivalents on your squads really come into play then, because you have on your Style Troop, and if you do plump the extra points to take them, handy for taking out any of that stuff that gets nice and close. But on a squad that has a lot of like a 10-man or 8-man infantry squad, you're going to get, if you roll up that D6 for those shots and you manage to fire off 6 shots at them, or 5 or whatever you might have left, that's still going to be a decent number of hits to try and take that thing out as well. So on the return, if you've managed to survive that initial hit, I suppose it's more games played and different situations, but it also depends on the terrain on the battlefield. Because if you're playing on something with lots of close-in buildings, your lines of sight are going to be so restricted that all those longer guns, so like your long barrel Panzer IVs, my Jag Tiger, even just the medium AT or the missile launcher system on the Locust, you're going to be restricted because of what terrain you're fighting in. So whether you wanted to try and keep it protected, kind of pop in and around buildings and that kind of thing, or whether you wanted to go through and go, just come at me and just like charge me in, or drop right in front of something and just dare them to shoot you.
Yeah.
Because even Armour 9, well, most people won't have enough to answer that in most squads, especially if we're looking at Style Troop and your Paragon squads, your Galahad suits, even the Japanese squads. They don't have enough index and mainly armed with LMGs or assault rifles. So the only thing you have is those single shot Panzerfaust like weapons that will hopefully go through and do something, but they don't get the shape charge bonus against a walker. So
they just half the penetration.
Yeah. So
which is still okay, but it means you're looking for more superficial damage bursts. Then again, it's the same thing. If you can get to point blank behind them and unload the whole squad, it's like D6 shots at a decent to hit modifier because of the point blank.
Yeah.
And the rear armor bonus will give you that edge. So if they're jumping out of a truck, again, there are a lot of transport options for getting mobility to get around these walkers that are, I think, something people need to remember. Yeah.
Look, since that game, I've been looking at my army list and I've made some adjustments here and there, but I've looked at toying with a Panzer Shrek team in a Schwimmenwagen, the Kubelwagen, and just running that around the field and just bailing out and taking shots and stuff at point blank with it. So just to try and get around it using the speed of the small vehicle, it's probably going to get torched by a single shot from something, but if it works, I can get around behind the enemy with the amount of fast moves. But I think army composition, along with not just the actual, what you're taking, but your upgrade options will make the big play in this. And I think that with a lot of newer books coming out, so like with the Totenrot and the Firefly platoons, they give you different ways to play. They give you different tools in your kit to use to make your army list. Whether they suit your play style is another matter, because some people go, no, I want to go all walkers. That's what I want to do. So you concentrate more on that end.
Andrew, do you think there's a place in your lists for something similar to Mitch, where you've got the SAS Jeep with a Piat team in it, like just going for those maneuverable around the back, AT launcher in the rear?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of versatility still in those units because of that penetration bonus. I need to look more at how, like, the power armor affects transport. But I can drop around potentially a super bazooka team in that Galahad armor for a little bit of extra survivability.
Yeah.
So perhaps similar thing, rocking up in a Jeep, drop out a super bazooka, blast something away, and then they've done their job.
Are the super bazookas multiple use? They're not one shot. I'm pretty sure it's just an upgrade.
I think it's just an upgrade.
I believe it's an upgrade, because otherwise, you're paying a lot for a squad that does one thing.
Well, I mean, it depends if you survive and you return fire. Then it becomes a one-shot weapon, doesn't it?
But then again, if it's veterans in Galahad armor, then that's 6s to wound, and they're pretty resilient, especially if you get them in some cover, taking their shots. So these are the questions that we've been asking each other to see how we change our lists. We've also restricted, like everybody else, by what's in our collections currently. So recently Andrew put in an order from War Library, and we grabbed some extra bits and pieces for different projects. And one of the things I grabbed was parts to make an AT rifle, to make an AT rifle sniper team for my Axis troops. I don't know if there's enough access to things like that. Like, it's hard to get those components for every army.
Yeah. I think that you'll have certain armies will lean into that if they have the model, if there's a model already out for it. So the Finnish heavy sniper from version 1 you could use as an Axis one. So because it just means that their kit doesn't look quite German though. They're quite, what do you expect for as far as an Axis force?
I had a thought the other day when I was going through some bits and pieces, and I saw the grenade rifle for the US troops, and I thought, why don't I just put a scope on a grenade rifle equipped model and call that a sniper AT gun, and use that as this is my Konflikt version, is a Rift tungsten grenade rifle. Because then we can see a lot of those units that don't actually have rules presently, they can be in games again. We can just be making up squads through these extra components. Just seemed like a cool option to me.
There are a few things where it feels like they're lacking on a few things. So not like Micah Berg's Jaeger not having the option under the basic Volksgrenadier list to take Mountaineers as an option is a little bit glaring, considering that you would still have those guys fighting from 45 onwards, but I can understand they can't put everything in when they first do it. So if they go, okay, well, we're doing this book, it's going to be for this area, we're going to include these troops. So it's something that sacrifice has got to be made here and there when they're writing a list. But the cool thing, being as has already been pretty much every other podcast has talked about, these lists can be upgraded at any point by Warlord Games. They don't have to print out a whole new book to give you, a whole new book for a couple of changes here and there or an extra unit or two. So they're being like a living rulebook or a living army list. It means any changes can be uploaded and away you go.
100%.
So it's that fact I really like when they do. They can look at making changes. So I'm hoping for the future we do see more of that sort of style of, well, here's something a little bit weird and wacky. They've worked on that principle, or it's like things that were considered an experimental weapon or experimental vehicle in like 45. It's like, no, these now with this Rift Tech upgrade, this is now a good vehicle to have in our army list. So like, heavier tanks, heavier artillery pieces, whatever it might be. So I think the amount of options out there, even if it's just conversion work and playing amongst your own group. If you agree to a rule set that someone's come up with, they go, yeah, it's going to cost this amount of points. I've based off this unit and this unit, and I've combined the points and gone, okay, well, I'll drop a bit here for this. Yeah, fine, go for it. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Luckily for us, we won't have to worry about a lot of that for the tournament. We'll just have known entities that we can dive into.
Yeah.
But especially in your gaming groups, if you've got social gaming groups and you love to have a bit of fun, hack some rules, make some adjustments and changes, have a squad of VB launchers, because they would press them into units at this point. Have a squad of rifle grenadiers that are 18-inch range, 1-inch mortars. They'd suddenly have a place because they've got that penetration value. But they're also just going to be light infantry. They're going to get shredded up real bad.
It's the rule of cool. Do something cool.
Like knee mortars for the Japanese list. So yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, lots of stuff to think about. So lots of stuff we can still keep talking about, different options here and there. So yeah, we'll move on to talking about, that was a bit about the bit more about the tournament. So let's have a quick break and we'll be back. Alright, and now for a very special episode of What's Got Mitch Distracted, it's Andrew's turn to be distracted. So Andrew, what has got you distracted this time?
Yes, it is an unusual series of events. Usually this is me ribbing you for your constant distractions, but it's my turn. So I am slowly corrupting the group into Barrons War. I just got hooked on it immediately. It is right up my theme of medieval historics, amazing. So I grabbed the rulebook and the starter set, started building that up, and I've had my first game with Lee, which was fantastic. It's actually a really simple, easy rule set just to get the basics down. There is, as with any game, there's a lot of nuance that you'll learn the more you play it. But by the end of our first game, we were already pretty much just using the quick rules reference page that came out, which was really, really good because it started to flow. Modelling wise, really fun. It's very early heraldry, so very early 1200s, which means that it's just a lot of basic, kind of quartering or a cross on a shield, or if you're lucky, maybe a star or a lion. They're very basic heraldry features, which means that it can be a bit on both ends of the spectrum. It can be very confusing because you can have a lot of models that have the same colours represented, which means that you're really looking for those shields. But on the flip side, it does mean that there's a lot of historic source to go out to get that information for. So you blend research with the modelling, which makes for a really, really fun kind of game.
Nice.
So how would you describe the game Barrons War to a complete newbie?
Yeah, so Barrons War is a skirmish game. So you're talking perhaps 30 to 40 models in your army. It is set during the historic period of the First Barrons War, which is where the Barons of England rebelled against King John because he was a bit of a not of a nice king, just to keep it PG. So the game revolves around that civil war strife of early 1200s England.
What sort of scale are we talking?
Yeah, we're talking 28mm, available through various companies, official models through Wargames Atlantic or Footsore. However, we are talking a medieval period, which means that there are tons of manufacturers out there that do fantastic models for that scale, which means that you've got a lot of hobby opportunity to build really cool models and have a variety of looks within the army.
Yeah. Well, nice. I mean, we've mentioned Medbury miniatures in Australia as amazing medieval era ones. They fit pretty close to that timeline historically, I think.
Yeah, pretty close. So he took a bit of a tact on his to not compete with Barrons War. So a lot of his models are early 14th century, so the 1300s. Look, they do work. It's fine. At the end of the day, it's your hobby. You're going to have fun with models regardless. You would probably be theming them more towards the second Barrons War than the first Barrons War, but the rule set would carry over absolutely fine. Yeah. You're also looking at manufacturers like Victrix, for example. They do really good plastic kits that work perfectly, and any other medieval ones that you can find. So there's a ton out there.
Nice. Still, with your mechanics, is there a lot of like token management or anything like that? Like, or is it just like you have like stun conditions for your troops or anything like that?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of everything. So if you kind of blend in, if you've played Test of Honor before, which is the Japanese skirmish game, heavy on tokens and statuses, I say it kind of falls in the middle. You have a lot of tokens that come with the set. They're great early on to remember what your forces have done, so they're more of a tracking mechanism than anything else. There are statuses in the game, like Weary, for example, if you do more than one action or if you do something that would tire you out, like running. It just then makes it harder for you to roll dice for the rest of that turn. But then, of course, there's other things like, if you're shocked because you just got absolutely trampled by a thing of charging knights, or you're broken because you've had too many casualties. A lot of those mechanics will be very familiar to people who have played skirmish games before. Different name perhaps, but the same kind of action.
Okay, nice.
I think probably the big difference between this one and a lot of other games is it's on the D10 system. However, it's still very basic mechanics. You are using a D10, however, but it is 5+ for example to wound would be your stat. So you're just rolling a 5 or higher on the D10. Just gives a little bit more variation. It also, I think, it allows better representation of the different units in the game, because you're using a D10. We've got 4 other statistics on that die that you can use, which means that you can have a really big scale of troops from your really bad peasant rabble, who might be a leadership 8+, all the way down to like a veteran baron who might be a 3+ on his morale. So you get that really big scope of models and units to add to the game.
Okay,
that's awesome. So timeline-wise, what weapons are we seeing here? We're seeing bows, crossbows.
Yep.
Are they up to black powder at that point, or is it earlier?
No, so we're still a little bit too early for, I guess, common black powder. There's early cannon, but that's not in the game. You're more looking at your bows, crossbows, pretty much any variety of melee weapon that you can think of. Knights have lances, all of that sort of thing. That is where it can start to get a bit complicated. So in the previous edition of Barrons War, you could arm your units individually. So you might have an axe, 2 swords and a flail, for example. Whereas now you do need to kit the miniatures out the same way. From a modelling standpoint, though, you are able to have like a mix of visual weapons, so long as 50% of the unit has the weapon that you have chosen for the points. So it just adds some variety. But individual weapons have different things. So a sword, for example, is better paired up with a shield, whereas a falchion's better at carving through padded armour. Starts to give you a bit of variety. You can tailor your units towards doing a particular thing.
Okay, right.
I love that there will be different types of armour that are more or less useful against different weapons. And then when you've got a D10 instead of a D6, those extra 4 results mean you've got different amounts of strength and weakness that you can represent on those dice. That's great.
Yeah, no, that's very cool.
Excellent.
So in the modelling opportunities, there's you mentioned about your heraldry is kind of restrictive, but the with the amount of different miniature companies out there, as well as whatever combinations you can you still just make your own heraldry up to
100%. I think you're going to have a combination of real heraldry, which you're going to need to stick to. For example, the game does revolve around the Barons of old. So if you're making a Baron, you would probably want to be using the correct heraldry for the Baron that you've chosen.
Yeah.
But you then have regular old knights that accompany that Baron that we might not have the historic sources for all of the individual household knights. So there you can probably have a little bit more of flexibility.
Yeah.
From someone who might like to blend research with modelling, there is some great resources out there. Early Blazon, for example, is a really good website you can go to. Click on England, click on a particular area of England. So you might click on Sussex, for example. It'll tell you who the Earl or the Baron was, and then who perhaps their vassals were.
Cool.
There's another great website called Weapon Wiki, which combines a whole heap of historical treaties and like parchment rolls and things from the time into digital format.
Oh, that's cool.
So, for example, you can go and look at the Magna Carta and see all of the knights and barons that were involved and their heraldry. So straight away, you've got all the resource you need for that. You might also, for that time period, look at, say, the Falkirk roll, which it is 50, 60 years later down the track. However, because heraldry was still so early, you could feasibly say that the heraldry from the Falkirk roll would be the sons of the people from the Magna Carta. So you give yourself a whole other set of models that you might want to base people off.
Cool.
Nice. That sounds very exciting, especially making up your own heraldry and being, doing stupid stuff like the Knights of the Holy Carrot. I can really ruin someone's day on the historical field. Not that I would, but I saw Vitrix brought out a bunch of Celt and Pictish warriors for that time period, and I believe you could easily field them like as the raiding bandits and things like that. And I think there's an expansion coming up.
Yeah, so the first expansion, I guess we'll call it, of Barrons War has just come out, which is the King John Sourcebook, which gives you a lot of variety to expand on the game. So it has a whole heap of new army lists that you can select from. So instead of just doing your basic European list, you can now do things like a Scottish list or a Welsh list or a Potivin if you want to be a French list. It gives a little bit of variety. They have different things. As Tim said, it then gives you that modelling opportunity to use those other ranges to pad it out. I mean, at the end of the day, we're still talking the 1200s, which means you're going to have a huge variety of people with clothing from, carryovers from maybe the previous century through to the people that are living in wealthier towns.
Very cool.
Excellent.
It's something I'm not going to get distracted with.
Your browser history says otherwise.
Yes, it does. And I'm part of several Barrons War Facebook groups for painting and modelling. So
excellent.
Yeah.
So look forward to another Barrons War distraction episode later on.
Yeah. All right, so we've had a bit of a chat about the Rift-o-rama, the one-day tournament that Ian is putting on. So he's also running a second day called Descent on Dresden, which is a narrative gaming day. Now, this one, he set it at 1,200 points, and you can take walker or armoured platoons for it. We've had a bit of a chat about what we might look at taking for it, and I tell you what, you don't get a lot in 1,200 points for most of them.
It is a tough job. Like, one of the fun things about Konflikt 47 is all the super Rift units, but those Rift units come at a hefty price.
They do, yeah. So they do have a couple of caveats on the like what you can take. So they still have it restricted. You can only, just like in the Rift-o-rama, the one day tournament, you can only take one unit from the bolt action book. And it must be late war. So you still be able to take something along for the ride into the Rift Tech universe, but for the most part, like we were saying in the previous section of the podcast here, most units are represented anyway. So like your Panzer IVs, your Tiger IIs, Panthers, that kind of thing, Shermans, they can all be taken regardless of what weaponry you have on there. They all fit. It's only some of those more specialized vehicles that you'll see coming through. So for example, like Jag Tigers, Jag Panthers. Don't think they actually have any rules for like the Hellcats or anything like that from the American list, or priests. I can't remember if they have a priest in there.
I haven't had a huge look at the other factions. I've mostly just been list building for my Access guys because that's what I'm taking for K47. However, similarly to the other tournament, to the Rift-o-rama, you can take one non-K47 unit for Dresden as well. So you could fit some of them in that way, I guess.
Yeah. I think having some of those heavier vehicles, those heavier late war vehicles, would be really quite handy, especially trying to knock things out. I think he mentioned at one point that we're probably going to see some quite large terrain features on the table, which will be very cool to see. whether they become part of the active game. Being a narrative battle, we have no idea what we're going into. It's not like you have a set mission list or anything like that.
Yeah.
He's just like bring on 1,200 points worth of vehicles, really. So walkers. So I'm excited to do that as something a bit different to your standard tournament play.
It's just going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you have in these different platoons, we've got the armoured walker platoon and the armoured platoon, is there are a couple of little units that you can sneak in here or there that might spice it up. So I'm not sure if it's exactly the same for Bolt Action 3rd Edition and Konflikt 47. But I know for some of them you can take specialist infantry squads or anti-tank teams, transport vehicles for them, basic and advanced infantry squads, so you could take some style trooping through to support your tanks that way. And that means that it's not just going to be walkers and tanks. There are going to be some infantry elements in there.
Yeah. My initial lists that I wrote for it did include that. I was looking at taking sort of one Shirecon Locust Walker in the list until our game, and I saw how effective they were. And then I went, well, I really should try and, I should really try and get another one in if I can. And Tim was like, well, I've got another one lying here with the exact same loadout you want to take with the auto cannons and the medium AT. Do you want to use it? And I'm like, yep. So
it's going to be very cool.
Yeah, so
the twins.
Yes, the twins. Yeah. So one is shiny and new armor, and the other one's got more beat up armor. But I've still got to paint one yet. So we might
have one's kind of quicksilvery, and maybe the other one can have red markings.
Yeah. So maybe red markings instead of green or something like that. So I'll figure that out. So I've been trying to get my stall trooping finished off for the 1,700 point army.
Close.
So so close to finishing. Another 2 days of painting, I reckon.
So you mentioned the two Shirecon walkers, the locusts, and these, for people that aren't aware, these are the German jump German jump walkers. They're 9+ armor, and they've got a couple of claw hands kind of thing, and their options for weapons are 2 MMGs and a rocket launcher, or you can upgrade the rocket launcher to a medium AT gun.
Medium AT, yep.
And you can upgrade the
MMGs.
Machine guns to 2 light autocannons.
Yeah.
So Mitch has gone with autocannons and AT gun on both of his. One of mine, the one that I have still in my collection, just has MMGs and the rockets, and it's a 2-inch rocket, so it's a +2 damage. So in a game that's going to be a ton of vehicles, Mitch definitely has the advantage there.
True, but I suppose it depends on what people take as part of their walker platoon, because if they do decide to take some basic infantry or Falcon, like the paratroopers, so even fireflies, they'll be perfect for that. Like we were talking about in the previous section, talking about just conflict overall. So I think your vehicle option still has a place. It just means to be a bit more specialised for hunting those infantry units that might be trying to lug around a Panzerschreck or a Piat or something like that.
Mine could be responsible for jumping over the building and taking out the Panzerschreck team or the squad of guys with D6 Panzerfaust launchers.
Yeah.
All those disposable rocket launchers can be very devastating, especially against immobile vehicles or like stationary targets.
Yeah, very much so.
So what else is in your list for this?
So my 1,200 point list, and this, because being a narrative game, it's not like we're playing for sheep stations. Not that in the main list we would ever get to the lofty heights of table 1. I'll see you on table 3 at the end. So it's the thing that we sort of find is more often than not, with your list building, you will restrict yourself by taking whatever particular list. So in this case, I've gone for an armored walker platoon, which does allow me to take extra units like some advanced or basic infantry. I can also take an anti-tank team, that kind of thing, right? So what I've decided to take in mine is a Shirecon command vehicle. So you got to take at least one of them as a command vehicle. Then for my units, I've taken a second Shirecon. So these are both veteran, by the way, so because I do love my veterans. I've also got a Jag Tiger. So, because it's horrendously big, it's I say ineffective, but it did actually do quite good in our practice game. Really good, really good. But it's so big that you can't fit it anywhere. It's so massive, but I love it. I actually got it as a gift from Tim, so for a birthday present. It's going to my Colmar army for our Colmar campaign when we get back around to playing some more bolt action on that. So I just want to put it, I want to field it because this is this type of game. Plus, with that massive cannon on it, it doesn't suffer any range penalties. It's +3 against infantry because it's got a big 3-inch template, so it's really good for killing off style trooping. Yeah, big thumbs up. So I've taken that, but then out of those points, I still actually have points left over. So I've gone, well, I need to fit something else in. So I went, you know what? I'll take a veteran Panzerschreck team just to run around pinging off one shot a turn. And I decided to chuck them in a Kuba wagon just so they can zip around and get behind stuff, like we were talking about. So I've gone for that, and that comes out at 1175. And unfortunately, that's me maxed out. I literally can't fit anything else in. Yeah, well. So, if I drop the Shirecons down, I could maybe fit another squad of something in. But is it worth it? Probably not. I do like the veteran ability, so that way I don't fail order test and run off the field of battle. So yeah, I've gone for that. So it's a pretty compact. It's only 6 dice. So 5 dice. Wow. Well, I've just gone back and looked at my notes. Yeah, 5 dice. So I'm only putting 5 dice in the bag, but it depends on how the game actually runs. So
are there any Rift dice in that, or are they? I think they're all standard.
They're all standard. I've got no Rift dice. So what about yourself, Tim? What's in your list that you're looking at taking?
So what am I taking? It is an armoured Walker platoon and an armoured platoon. Ooh. In the Walker platoon, this might change because I gave one of my Shirecons to you.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So that's 265 points I got to fill in. But I've got a Shirecon with anti-infantry weapons, rockets and MMGs. And then I've got a Vogel spinner, which I was going to upgrade to veteran because then I can use the German Schwertruppen Mastery, where I get to choose one veteran vehicle with the Rift cannon, the Schwerfeld projector, and set it to surging at the start of the game.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Which is great because it means I can fire 2 pulse blasts if I need them, or I can fire 1 overloaded pulse blast right at the start. So it was going to be 2 Locust Walkers and the Spider, the Tarantula, the Vogel Spinner. The Vogel Spinner is Tarantula, as it turns out.
There you
go. Then the armoured platoon is where it gets a little bit funky. The commander for that is a Tiger 1.
Yeah.
And it's just straight up Tiger tank, the scourge of everybody in World War II anyway. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that guy can do his job in Konflikt 47.
Yeah.
Because it's still improved HE. I think it's a 3-inch template I discovered the other day.
Oh, okay.
It's real mean. So against Style Trooping, great, +3 to wound on a nice big template. It's at least HE2, but yeah, he's solid. And then the super heavy anti-tank gun for all the other work.
Well, again, just knocking out any kind of armour, it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just having a look on the app now, and it's HE 3-inch.
Okay. Yep.
And then he's backed up with a Panzer IV with a Schwerfeld cannon, and he might actually be the veteran. I think I made the Panzer IV the veteran Schwerfeld unit.
Yep.
And then the Vogel spinner can just be a light running around causing trouble one. But that means I've only got 5 dice and 2 Rift dice, one for each of the Schwerfeld projector units.
Still though, I mean, I think at this points level, 5 dice is pretty much where it's going to be at. So, but again, not because Ian's playing it a bit close to his chest as to how this works. He hasn't released a huge amount of details for it. It'd be really interesting to see how it works. Whether you have like a collective bag for it, because at the moment I think we're sitting at about 8 to 10 players.
Cool.
So for both days, I think pretty much everyone's playing both days at this stage. So it depends if we're getting more ringers in or late arrivals to it.
It'll also be interesting because it's a one massive table. If we end up with 6 Axis players and 2 US players, are we just having traders on one side? You know,
maybe. So it might be a case of that someone draws the straws to go through on the other side. So they could be defector units, so that have gone through and have had enough. They're going to take their tech and move over to the Allies side. See if they might in exchange for their lives, go through and still keep around if they give up the secrets of the units, so the mechs. Look, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the day. It's going to be a fun day for that part of it.
Absolutely. I think we'll have some nice advantages because I've got the Vogel spinner, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of them. We've both got jump walkers, which will be great no matter what terrain we find. On a 16-foot table, it's going to be a ton of terrain. I think being themed around Dresden, it's going to be a lot of city ruins.
He's got access to all the clubs terrain. I think they've got quite a nice small Stalingrad board that you could probably go through and repurpose for Dresden. Looking all bombed out.
So anything that's a walker has a better job of getting through difficult terrain than the tank does, and the jump walkers, we could be dropping in a whole squad of them later on.
That'd be sweet.
Likewise, on the enemy sides, people from buying the starter sets have a lot of access to the linebacker jump walker. So we'll see quite a lot of mobility from that side. But then we can still be fielding style trooping in trucks to just run up nice and close with Panzerfaust upgrades, with light AT guns to get around to the sides of armour as well. Something that we forgot to mention in the last section about our normal K47 game was the kind of work that all those light AT guns were doing on our style trooping squads, because they can split fire as well. We're frequently just throwing like light AT shots at your Yag Tiger and just getting some pins on it. Just hit it once in a while with a couple of little one-off shots, or a bazooka that didn't just bounced off or whatever. But it would just do enough. We had a couple of turns where your Tiger was looking at morale checks just to be active. And the same with mine. We had loads of our vehicles just getting pins from all of the light anti-tank stuff, even if it couldn't hurt it, could pin it.
I think that it'll be interesting to see overall how that works with something this like more of a narrative game, where you do have a larger field size, multiple walkers, more than you'll probably see in a regular game. Mind you, some people may just take what they've got in their 1700 and just drop like one of the platoons out of it. So and just go, cool, that's exactly 1200 points. And it has all the vehicles in there. They could still take all those armored walkers. I really interesting to see what happens. So if you guys have a chance to check out the actual day, so it's the 17th of May is the Descent on Dresden narrative game. The tournament is on the 16th, the day before. So if you do have a chance to come check out Shirecon, if you're in the Sydney area, so jump on. It's at Sylvania on Box Hill Road. So you can always go through and check the, like I mentioned before, check out the Shirecon website. Have a look for some more information from there. But we're looking forward to it. So as soon as Ian put it up, we were talking about it at CanCon with him when we saw him at CanCon as he was running the bolt action tournament. We're like, it'd be very cool if one was being run. He's like, oh yeah, something's going to happen. So I'm like, yep, done. So both in for it.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. Please come on by and say hi to us. That would be great.
Yeah. Thanks. Alright guys, thanks again for listening to us this time around. So we'll be back with another episode hopefully shortly, once probably do a quick tournament review. I reckon is probably our next episode. Maybe a bit more about Barrons War, and maybe a bit more even about Burrows and Badgers. So if anyone was interested in that at the top of the episode, so we might have Tim have a bit more of a chat about what he's want to do, maybe get on Lee to have his perspective as well, coming into as a new player. So we'll get on to that. But thanks again for having a listen, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.